YouTubers, and welcome to another Doctor Who custom action figure video. I shall show you the custom that you're all expecting to see, which is Jamie Macrimmon. And there he is. Now, I'm very, very pleased with how this figure turned out. This is Jamie as he was in Fury from the Deep. That's what the pictures I use for reference were from, because there's a couple of colour pictures of Fury from the Deep, even though the story no longer exists, and it was just a lot easier to go with that. Now, this is not a Doctor Who figure for the base. It is a Playmates Star Trek Captain Kirk figure from one of the Star Trek films. Don't ask me any more on that, because I have absolutely no knowledge of Star Trek whatsoever. I've never been able to stand the programme. But it's a Star Trek figure, basically, and I've just sort of came across it on eBay and thought, oh, that'd be quite good. So I'll just talk you through how I made this figure. The first thing that I did was I chiselled away the sort of lines on his face, not around his mouth, but on his forehead and around his eyes, because he did look a lot older than Jamie should do. So that was the first thing. Then I chopped his legs off. The figure wasn't tall enough, so I chopped his legs off as a means to make him taller. But I'll go into a bit more detail about that in a sec. I then started sculpting, so I began with the torso, which, as you can see, has got the main sort of details on it. Practically everything of the costume is made from Milliput. This is how I began. I started off by doing that strip at the middle of his shirt, nice and easy. Then I added the neckerchief, or the cravat, whatever you want to call it, that he wears. That was sculpted with Milliput. So I just sort of added a blob there and a blob at the top and two blobs on either side to make it look like you've got the knot. Then I proceeded to get a pin and just sculpt in the creases of the fabric. After that, I then proceeded to make the collar. So the collar, again, was made from Milliput. I just added two very thin strips here as a continuation from the main strip, so just like his shirt's undone, and then added two pieces on either side and attached them like that, and it looked a lot better because you could actually see the collar properly. Unfortunately, Jamie wears a jacket on top, so it ended up having to be covered by even more Milliput, but you can see that he's got a collar on underneath. So then I did the collar, the collar of his coat, sort of like his lapels, I suppose, which is a fur trim. Now, to make the fur, which I sculpted, which was actually very, very simple. You may think it looks quite difficult to do. Very easy. Basically, all I did was make, just roll up two sort of sausage shapes, stuck them on either side, and then to get the texture of the fur, I used a safety pin, and on the end you've got the small sort of circle, and using that circle, I just very carefully pressed it in, here and there, into the Milliput, all over the place, so you get these fine indentations and these curls, which give the effect of fur. Then I put Milliput over the rest of the figure to carry on the sort of jacket on the back, and then from there I added bits of Milliput on the arms of here and there, as he had some sort of weird patterns of his uniform sculpted onto his forearms, so I wanted to get rid of that. And that was the first steps. Then I moved on to the kilt and the legs. So here is where I extended Jamie's legs so he got a bit taller. all I did was get a huge clump of milliput, stick it over his waist, and sort of jam the legs in so that he got just slightly taller. Fraser Hines actually only a tad taller than Pat Troughton. Of course, Pat Troughton was the second shortest Doctor. So whenever you see a picture of Jamie and the Doctor together, they're always the same sort of height. So I only wanted to extend him a little bit. So once I'd done that, I then proceeded to get more milliput and basically sculpt a big square around him. As you can see all the milliput underneath. So because of this, he can't walk. He has no articulation at the hips. Not that I'm particularly worried about that. I'll just make sure that he never has to sit down. So once I had done that, I then sculpted this piece on the front. That was just milliput, big sort of circles spread out. Then the lines were done with a pin, and then 3 other pieces added on as the tassels, and they had sort of the lines sculpted in with a pin as well. And then I added creases to the kilt, and that was just with a pin as well. And the final part was adding these sort of trims around his boots. I don't know why he's actually got them, but that's what it was like in the photographs. So that was it, and that's how I completed the this sort of effect. Oh, and one thing I have forgotten to mention was I also sanded down the creases on the legs, because these were originally trousers, so I sort of got rid of them and sanded them down so that he didn't have creases in his skin. And the last thing was the hair, which was just added with milliput and sculpted with a safety pin to put all the lines in and everything. And that was that. And then I proceeded to paint it. And as always, there he is in black and white, as he will appear in my story. Which is obviously a bit of a shame, because the figure's got quite a lot of rich, bright colours. They're lost when you go into monochrome. So, there you go. That is Jamie Macrimmon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Predictable as ever, Doctor.